Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Don Cramper from Unstoppable Life. Hopefully this is not your first time here, but if it is, welcome. And if you're an existing customer, thank you for coming back. This show completely exists for the conversations many of us were never really taught how to have. Those internal ones, those uncomfortable ones, the ones that quietly shape how we show up in our lives and in the world to everybody. So here we talk about silent pressures and the invisible battles that we struggle with and the quiet turning points that change everything as long as we're willing to step into the struggle. Because growth doesn't happen when we're pretending everything is great and we're sitting and watching life go by. Growth happens when we finally start telling the truth and taking meaningful steps in the direction of who we want to become. So today, we're going to be talking about the truth many of us men really never saw coming. It's called the identity crisis no one prepares us for. So the crisis that doesn't look like a crisis, that's where we kind of start. So when we hear the phrase, or at least when I heard the phrase, identity crisis, I pictured pretty much a stereotype, right? It's like buying a sports car. That's a stereotype. Or quitting a job. Or maybe a dramatic life change. But the real identity crisis rarely looks dramatic from the outside. It kind of just looks normal. It's just like day to day, things are just going along. It looks quiet, right? It looks like sometimes, it looks like us losing motivation. That's kind of an identity crisis. Or feeling disconnected. Or questioning decisions we used to feel confident making. Or maybe even feeling restless even when life is good. See, we don't need to feel like we're broken or really struggling. You just don't feel like you or like yourself anymore. That's kind of the quiet identity crisis. And no one really warns us about how and why this might happen. Some of the reasons are the roles that we were given or we inherited. See, most of us grow up being kind of handed a script, so to speak. You know, it looks like, what our fathers did, and those were our examples, and what our older siblings, be responsible, and be strong, and provide, and protect, figure it out. Don't complain, don't fall apart, and keep moving forward. We've heard and seen examples of all those things happening around us and to us. And for decades, sometimes, we do exactly those things. We repeat them. So we build careers from that. We have families and build relationships. And then, guess what? All of a sudden, we become very dependable. And we become needed. And we adapt and become the strong one, much like I spoke about in the previous podcast sessions. And here's the part that kind of no one really explains to us in much detail. We kind of have to learn it on the fly. Is one day we start to kind of wake up and realize that the roles that we built around our lives don't fully really define us anymore. It starts to change. And it's not because there's anything wrong here. And it certainly isn't because we were never meant to be our identity forever, that particular part. Something changes, right? And then when achievement stops answering the question, when that happens, as we're having successes in all those relationships and in the job and in our career, there comes a moment when many of us experience the achievement, and the achievement stops feeling like the answer, right? It feels more like, we've hit our goals and we check boxes and we do what we're supposed to do. That kind of starts changing. And instead of fulfillment, we kind of start feeling a strange emptiness. It's not depression. It's certainly not failure, but we do feel different. It's just a quiet question in the background kind of asking us, is this it? Is this kind of all there is after I've had all these successes and I've had all these things happening around me? And the question can feel kind of terrifying a little bit because we spent either years or decades kind of being the person who has had all the answers and the successes and the achievements, right? And then all of a sudden, we're this guy with, instead of having answers, has a lot of questions. And there's nothing wrong with that. See, it's an invisible transition there. And this is the part of our life that kind of no one really prepares us for. I certainly wasn't prepared for it. I was a guy who had all the answers. Now all of a sudden I have a lot of questions with no answers. So that transition comes from being and building a life to understanding and living from it. See, when we're younger, identity comes from a lot of different sources. And maybe you can recognize some of them. I certainly recognize them for me. It came from achievement and roles and responsibility and external, outside of us, external validations. But eventually, something is going to shift. And then we start craving things differently. We start looking and craving things with meaning and purpose and authenticity and alignment. And the old strategies don't work anymore. Working harder does not fix it. Pushing through it doesn't fix it. And ignoring it definitely doesn't fix it. So the reason this happens is because this isn't a performance issue or a performance struggle or problem. This goes back to our identity again, and it's an identity evolution and an identity expansion. And so you might be asking, or I know I asked this, why does this feel so uncomfortable to us? This is a stage that feels uncomfortable because we were never taught how to navigate through it or within it. You know what we were taught to do? We were taught how to succeed. We were taught how to provide. We were taught how to survive, particularly under pressure. But really, we were never taught how to redefine ourselves when it was necessary or reconnect with our voice when it was lost. And we never really were taught what we actually wanted or admit we feel we were losing or lost. So here's the truth about all of that kind of encompassed feeling. See, a feeling lost doesn't mean we're failing. It certainly feels that way. That's why they call it a feeling. But it really means that we've outgrown a version of ourselves. And when we outgrow a version of ourselves, there is a turning point. And this is the identity crisis that is not really a breakdown. It's just a crossroads, okay? It's nothing broken here. It's a kind of a quiet moment in life where there's a question that kind of quietly pops up. And we ask, who are we? And who are we when we're not the role that we play, right? Or who are we when we're not just the strong one anymore? Or who are we when the old definition of us doesn't fit the description anymore? And this is those moments that feel like, at least for me, it felt like it was a threat or maybe an invitation to something different. And that invitation could be to rediscover our direction or rediscover our voice or just rediscover the next chapter that we're trying to become or trying to design. And none of us are alone in this. This is happening to more men than they would rather admit to or even talk about. right? Those are the folks, and I live this. We look successful. We look stable. They look like they have it all together. But inside, they're asking a completely different question. Like, what's next? Or who am I now? Or God, where do I go from here? And some of those questions don't have immediate answers. And one of the most powerful things that we realize in that moment, when we're asking that kind of question, is you have to recognize that we're not alone in this, and we're certainly not late in life because we don't have the answer to those questions. You know what we're doing? We're evolving. The identity crisis no one prepared us for is actually the doorway to becoming the person that we were never given time to discover. So we have to discover that. We have to almost call it a rediscovery, and that discovery will start to change everything. So if this discussion and this episode kind of resonates with you and you feel like you're in that space, you're probably realizing you might be in that transition right now. And this is actually why I've created this podcast to have these discussions and my Unstoppable Life network of programs. So if you're in that space and you're looking for something simple, somewhere to start, don't know where to go, maybe you just need to go and check out the reset that's designed to help reconnect and find your starting line. And if you're deeper and ready to go deeper, I should say, and you're thinking about, hey, I think I'm past it, I kind of know a little bit, but I'm not really confident, maybe we need to start somewhere else in my Unstoppable Life Personal Growth Academy, maybe something one-on-one. But all of these things are built specifically for us to navigate the stages of life and create and rediscover our identity so we can discover and learn more about ourselves and where we want to go. Just check it out. Go to unstoppablelifenetwork.com and begin your own discovery and reset whenever you're ready. Tune in next week when next week we're going to be talking about this new conversation with an episode I call When Your Old Life No Longer Fits. It goes in sequence with what I've been talking about the last few weeks, okay? And so we're going to talk about a little bit deeper about what happens when the life we built starts to feel a little misaligned and why that feeling might be the beginning of something completely new and more expansive. Until next week, and until then, keep showing up, keep growing, and keep having truthful and honest conversations about those things that we keep talking about. Because this is the truth about it.